Tonight, I'm very pleased and excited in a way because Frank Eucalitto has been in this area for a long time. So Frank is the executive chef at the Café Chardonnay and in Palm Beach Garden.
So tonight I just trying to do something different. So we're trying some of these. We've had all these items at the restaurant, but they're not the most popular because it's rabbit and because it's clams. And so I'm glad that you all came because it's not like something that everybody loves, like our macadamia snapper or rack of lamb, or to me that gets kind of boring because we've been doing it for so long. But so we're going to start off with a really quick and easy appetizer, so we can start cooking and you guys can have something to eat. So we get stracciatella cheese, and it's made down in Fort Lauderdale, and it's basically the inside of burrata. It's when they make fresh mozzarella cheese, they get all these like shredded shards that they put in a bowl, and they add heavy cream and salt and a little bit of vinegar, and then just let it sit. And it's only lasts about 4 or 5 days, and then it starts to get a little soupy and kind of loses its body. But it's called stracciatella, which is like little shards in Italian. So they've got 3 different types. They've got the stracciatella, then you've got the ice cream or gelato that's got vanilla ice cream with the chocolate shards, and then the stracciatella soup, which looks like the same thing, but it's eggs that they put in the egg drop soup. So this is really simple. We've got some beautiful tomatoes from the farm here, and we're just going to put some really good extra virgin olive oil in here, and some aged balsamic vinegar, and we can either grill. So we make a bruschetta for this that goes with it. So we can either grill the bread, or tonight we roasted it in the oven because there's not a grill back here today, but we need to turn a big grill on for 2 little pieces of bread. I did this before. So we just take extra virgin olive oil and we put a little sliced garlic in it, let it sit for a little while, and then just brush just a light layer of olive oil on it, and we bake them for about 10 minutes, or we put it on the grill and toast it on both sides, and you get a little darker, earthier flavor to it, but it tastes good like this. Some of our balsamic vinegar, kosher salt, some pepper, and then I've got some fresh basil from Diane we're going to cut and put in. And that's about it for the ingredients. I'm going to toss a little greens. We've got some arugula and some baby lettuces, and also some baby kale that we're going to toss and put on top of this too. So here's the fresh basil in there, like that. And then we're going to season this greens the same way. A little more oil. And that. And this can be all served as like a little appetizer. We do it at the restaurant sometimes with fresh figs that we'll put in it, or on the bruschetta we'll put pomegranate seeds, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, sometimes some roasted beets, and we have a honey balsamic glaze we'll put over the top when we're done. So just for a sample setup, it would just be really simple. Just whatever greens you have, you could put on your plate or your bowl, and then spoon your tomatoes over it, like so. Put your tomatoes in the middle. Then we would have put the toast around the sides. And then we spoon this cheese kind of right on the edge of the toast, like that. Put that on there. And then it's kind of a salad appetizer combination. So that's what it looks like with a little glaze. And then we have balsamic glaze, reduced balsamic vinegar, and some honey. We drizzle that on there, like that. And then we got some sunflower seeds we're going to put on. So that's this, really simple and easy. We're going to go ahead and plate some up for you now, and we can get started, and then we'll start on the clam appetizer.
For the feast, we'll be dancing to a reggae song, jamming to the rhythm all night long, cooking in the kitchen, rocking on the phone at Kai's Music Garden.
Everybody enjoying it? You like it? Good. I'm gonna get started on the clams while you're finishing that up. So I've got some little neck clams here. I always order the ones from the Northeast because I found the ones from Florida are always sandy. No matter what we do to them, they always end up being a little bit gritty. We get the clams in. We put them in a flat, like hotel pan of water. They put some cornmeal in, and we leave them in the water overnight. And they ingest the cornmeal and spit out the sand, and then rinse them off, scrub them, and most of the time, you're gonna get a little bit of grit, but nowhere near if you don't do it, or if you. I don't know, my experience with Florida clams has always been that they're gritty. So I pan on medium heat if I'm cooking with olive oil, and or with garlic, because olive oil has a low burning point. So I just put it to medium at the most. And then when I make clam sauce or seafood pastas, I like to crush my garlic and put it in whole versus chopping it really fine, because for me it gets too strong. I never use the stuff that you buy that's already minced, because besides the preservatives, it's just so strong. So I just take the side of my knife and flatten a little bit. And it doesn't, this much garlic chopped would be probably 5 times more powerful in your pasta than this is going to be. So it looks like a lot of garlic, but it almost caramelizes. I cook it really slow, so it doesn't have that acidic, strong garlic flavor. Now see, I turned it already up too high, so if I do that, I just add a little more oil to cool it down. Otherwise, it's going to start burning on the outside, and the inside is just going to have that raw garlic flavor, which I don't like that to eat myself, so I cook it all the way through. We do the same thing at the restaurant. The guys like Jose and the guys that work for us, they know if they didn't cook it enough, because I can usually taste it and walk by. You could smell it, that it's not cooked enough. Even if the sauce has been cooking for a couple hours, if you don't cook it all the way first, you can't change it. So we really try to make sure it's always cooked, right, Jose? Yeah. Jose makes most of our tomato sauces, so he's really good at it. He also used to make sauce with me when a friend of mine and I made pasta sauce about 10, 15 years ago. It's been a while. But we jarred it, and first we sold it to restaurants, then we jarred it. But Jose and I went to Fort Lauderdale and went to Riviera Beach, and we were making first 50-gallon batches, then 100-gallon batches, and then we turned it into 1,000-gallon batches. And doing the same thing, making sure that they cooked the garlic every time. And all the places we went to, they were co-packers. They never did that. So when they made a jarred sauce or a frozen sauce for food service, they would just put the garlic in. And so we convinced them to do it this way, and it worked. But then the recession and the reality of retail foods hit, and so we stopped making sauces. So we were in Costco's, and we were in Greenwise and a bunch of other places. But when we found out is all those 2-for-1 things that they have on special, the manufacturer pays for them all. So it just, they kept asking us for more and more free things, and don't worry, you'll make it back later. But we just decided it wasn't worth it. All right, so I cooked this just like that. I throw a couple anchovies in there, like that, and you don't even know they're in there. Once they're gone, just adds a little flavor to it, that's all. And then we're going to use Happy Rich broccoli today, which is from Diane. So we either can grill it or roast it, but I'm going to put it in here so it picks up the flavor and let it cook with the clams. It's blanched, but just slightly. And then I split the big stalks because it's all really tender and really sweet. So this gives it a little more flavor. Then I'll just add, usually depending if it's an appetizer, how you're making it at home, it's 6 clams for an appetizer, a dozen for an entree. So I'm going to put what I've got in here, and I've got another 100 clams back there already done, so we don't have to wait for all these to cook. So I'll saute that for a minute. A little pepper, some crushed red pepper, and then I put in a little bit of basil and more parsley than basil, which that's behind me. I've got to get that out. Just julienne it real fast. Yeah. Anybody have any questions or about this or anything else with food or restaurant related while I'm up here? All right. There, a little bit of white wine. Then I put a cover on it. Takes about 5 minutes, and it'll steam open. And then we add the pasta. And I've got a little broth. You can use clam broth. I've got clam broth with me. If you don't have clam broth, you can use like a vegetable broth. You can use chicken broth even. It's not going to make that much of a difference. You'll need a little bit more so you can put some pasta in with it. We're doing this strozzapreti, it's called. It's like a curled pasta. You can hand make them. These are from Italy. They're rustic, but it was named. I forget what century it was, but at some point the royalty in Italy cut the eggs off from the general public, so they had to make pasta just out of flour and water, and so in the towns and the villages, the priests would always get food from all the different families. They would feed them pasta on Sundays, so they called this the priest strangler. So they hope, because the men would always say that they hope the priests will choke on it, because they took the eggs away and they had to cook with just flour and water. So that's a little story behind that. This is cooking slowly here. So this is going to steam open, and we're going to go ahead and start setting up the bigger dishes, and when that gets ready, we'll pop it open and finish it. But we'll start the ones for you guys to eat now. You can see these are just starting to open now. Slowly. Take another about 5 minutes, and then it would be ready to serve. We'll put this top back on, like that. I think there was a question about wine. Was it for the white wine? What kind to use? So for a seafood dish, we usually use something not too oaky, like we don't use Chardonnay. We usually use the Chablis, which is just like a table wine. But for reds, if we're cooking like the rabbit tonight, I'm using it's a lower price, but I'm using a Chianti instead of just a bottled, because the bottled red wine that's just a generic isn't very good. So usually if we're making a Cabernet sauce, we'll actually use a Cabernet. Zinfandel sauce, we use Zinfandel, and in the small batches that we make, if we're making a couple quarts of sauce, you really could tell the difference. I think we're making gallons at a time. It may not make that much of a difference, but we still make all our stocks and sauces at the restaurant from scratch, our lobster bisque and all our desserts. So we've got, so we use a variety of things in the sauces, but generally, if it's a better wine, a dish does taste a little better. I found, especially with reds. So these are just popping open. Now you also can use, like if you like chopped clams, you can buy chopped clams and add them to these afterwards. And those would just go in the last minute. If these are starting to open, I'll put a spoon in there just to get them to pop open. If they don't open at all after a couple minutes, just take them out, because they could be mud clams. They'll be full of mud, and you open it up and it'll ruin the whole dish. And if they're open before you cook them, don't use them, because that means they died, and you don't want to eat them after they've died for clams. If they close back up, when you take them out of the refrigerator, you'll see them. They might be open, but they'll close. Then they're fine. But if they don't close, you don't want to use them either. There we go. A couple more left, and that's about it. Really simple. And then I would take the clams out and add the pasta back in, then toss the pasta with the sauce, and then put the clams around the outside. That's what we're getting ready to do over here. So I'm going to leave that there for a second. Okay, all the clams are open now, so I'm going to take them out. Just put them in a separate bowl here. Like that. And I've got the pasta cooked already. We're just going to toss that. And I like this one because the broth gets kind of caught inside. I let it cook in the pasta for about a minute. Let it simmer. And the pasta absorbs some of the broth, so it doesn't just run off the pasta and have all water in your plate. We do the same even if we're doing like rigatoni or penne. We always toss it instead of just ladling the sauce over the top. That's when you get all the water in the bottom of your bowl. If you're at a restaurant and you get pasta like that, they just kind of poured sauce over the top of hot pasta. And we also don't rinse our pasta. For the restaurant, we have to cook it ahead of time, so we cook it al dente, but we just put it out into a strainer, and then we lay it out on sheet pans with a little oil on them. and we let them cool like that, and that way the starch stays on the pasta. So then we toss it back in, there's still starch in it to thicken the sauce up a little, and it keeps a little more flavor too. I learned that from a chef from Barilla when I was at a food show, because I grew up eating spaghetti, and my parents always rinsed it and added, tossed it in the sauce, but they still always rinsed it. And so the chef was telling us, never rinse your pasta.
Memory late on this night, timeless beauty night, timeless beauty dressed in white, underneath the stars, a Kai's music card.
And this is a little appetizer size here, small bowl, but then a little of the broth over the top, and that's it. Cheese if you want it, but they don't serve cheese on seafood pastas in Italy, but you can. My wife always wants cheese on her seafood pasta, and tease her about it, but if you like it that way, that's fine. Yep, whatever you like. Same thing for wine. If you like red wine with fish, have red wine with fish. It doesn't matter. All right, let's get your dishes set up over here. All right, I'm just getting all the prep ready. I've got the carrots and onions here. Just a tiny bit of garlic, just 2 cloves, just for a little garlic flavor. And then I've got some fresh rosemary we're going to put in, some sage, a little bit of parsley and basil. We're going to taste more rosemary in the rabbit than anything else. And so I've got mushrooms from a farm. It's a new farm. It's Gratitude Gardens Farm. It's west of Boynton Beach, I think. And they grow wild mushrooms, each one in an individual container, like metal container. And it takes about 3 weeks to grow these mushrooms. So they're beautiful. There's blue oysters. She's got white ones. She's got these like big trumpet mushrooms. These are like hen of the woods. You break them apart. She's got one that looks like a head of cauliflower. She's got like the little gnocchis and sashimis, and there's about 10 different kinds of mushrooms that they grow there. They're beautiful. So we get an order a week. We've been doing them with a pasta dish with just fettuccine or something, and just sautéed with some white truffle butter and just the mushrooms, and they're delicious just by themselves. So we're gonna do rabbit. So I've got one here. I knew I was going to hear that. Looks like a chicken with bigger legs, but you actually could do this. You could do this with chicken if you want to not have rabbit. The same recipe works with chicken. It's pretty much the same. You don't have to worry about having rabbit. But so anyway, if you did want to get a rabbit, if you got one at, say, I think Joseph's probably has them, or Doris's Market, I'm sure they would cut it for you. So yeah, so we're going to cut off the shoulder. We're going to cut off the hind section here. And so the way I did it tonight is rustic, more like Italian. We'll do this at the restaurant in a few different ways. Sometimes with cream and mustard. Other times with just some more of a brown sauce over mashed potatoes, which somebody requested that last night. And we'll also take the bones. We'll leave the bones in the leg and thigh, but we'll take so this back part is the loin, which would be like the equivalent of the rib eye and a sirloin, and then underneath there's a little tenderloin. So we'll take those out and put them in a bag and sous vide those and cook them for about an hour, and then we pan sear them when you're ready and slice them. So that's nice and tender. And then we'll take the small pieces, toss them with the pasta. Or tonight I'm going to do some polenta underneath it. So let me just bone these out. Take a second. Put these in here. And then just going to cut these section right there. But I said you wouldn't have to do this. The butcher will do this for you, but that. And then this. There. There we go. And then I would take this and cook this in for a stock. Actually, I would probably cook it in the dish and then just take the pieces out because it would add so much flavor to it. So I'm going to cut this one in half also. This is a little harder, so I'll have to cut it with a bigger knife. There. That's it. Okay. So that's it for that. We'll get this out of the way so you don't have to look at it. So I'm going to toss a little bit of rosemary with the rabbit before I cook it. I like to season it beforehand, so I'll put some little rosemary, salt and pepper. I'll toss it in there. So I season that real well. Toss it. Toss it quick. Turn that down a little. There we go. That's better. I'm gonna put the flour on there. There. That's good. All right. Just gonna dredge it lightly in flour, shake it off. And we get them golden brown. I'm gonna cook a little bit so it has some color to it. There's no skin like you'd have with chicken, so you don't have a barrier between the meat and the skin itself. So you don't want to get it too brown, or it'll get tough. I've got some sage leaves. I'm just going to throw them in whole because I don't want a ton of flavor from the sage, so I'll just let them cook in there. After I brown this on both sides, and I'll take it out, put it off to the side, and I'll add all my vegetables and just brown those. I'll cook them in it, and then I've got the red wine that's going to go in there, and a little bit of chicken broth and some pureed tomatoes. Just take some can of good tomatoes like San Marzanos or something and just crush them up or put them in the food processor. Get them a little bit almost pureed, but you want still a few chunks in it. And then we'll put it all in together and let it roast in the oven. Jose, can you give me a pair of tongs? Where did we put it? I see them right there. And what else did I need? Tongs and another half hotel pan, or just something, a tray I could put this on when I'm done. So the rabbit I made today, like I said, it's more rustic, so it's going to have some bones in it, and it's not going to be mushy, like falling off the bone. If you leave it in, you can cook it like a stew and leave it in the oven for about 2 hours, and then it just kind of falls off. The way ours is tonight, it's got a little more texture to it, so it's going to be more like eating like a roasted chicken versus eating a chicken that's just boiled in or braised for a long time. Okay. And it browns up pretty fast. It doesn't take too long to get that color. And I like to make sure I use a pan that's big enough to fit everything. So if you crowd it, then it doesn't brown. And it just cools off too fast. Same thing when you're roasting or when we're cooking any vegetables. We roast vegetables. You just want to lay them out and not stack anything on top of each other. We do roasted vegetables for our elk. We do beets and turnips and these carrots and onions, and we'll toss them in olive oil and herbs, and we roast them so they get nice and caramelized, and then we put those with our short ribs and with our elk chop. But if you don't spread them out in a pan, then they just turn into the kind of boiled vegetables. All right, just like that, nice and brown. And I've got my carrots and onions right here. So next I'm going to put the garlic in for a second. Use a little more oil. Let the garlic cook. I kind of push it off to the side. If the stove's not level or if the pan's not level, I end up holding my pan up like this a lot. At home, mine's not level, so I'll pick it up and put a spoon under it and let it sit, so the oil stays in one place, so I can cook it all evenly instead of having it spread all over the pan without any oil. So I tip it up a little bit. There we go. Turn it down. And then got the onions and carrots. And then with these mushrooms, they're grown. They're not grown in dirt. There's it's like almost. I think she uses coconut, shredded coconut, and something. It's like a moss almost. She said. So there isn't any dirt, but we still brush them off because you'll get pieces of that. But they're just so simple. And we just cut these up nice big pieces. And this one just kind of peels apart like that. And we break these off. Same thing, these I'm just going to cut the stem like that. And they will shrink quite a bit, so you can put them in large pieces because there won't be much left to them after an hour. Also, what we do is I'll put some of these in there for flavor, which I didn't put in the recipe. I'll put some in for flavor, and then I'll reserve half of them, and I'll saute them just really quick, like 2 minutes in olive oil and salt and pepper, and then add them right before we're ready to serve the dish. So you've got some big pieces of mushroom instead of them all cooked inside. There. That's that. And then just a little more of the fresh herbs. And I throw one bay leaf in. And then the wine and stock and tomatoes, and it just goes in the oven for an hour. I just put a cover on it. You can put foil or a lid and just leave a little bit of a venting in it. And about an hour at 350, it should be ready. If you wanted to, if you didn't want to have serve all the bones, you could cook it ahead, let it cool, and then take the meat off each section, because you want to cook it with the bones for the flavor. But you could actually break it off and then serve it and add it back in, just the meat, so you don't have to deal with the bones and stuff when you're ready to serve it. And you can cook it a day or two ahead of time and let it sit in. It actually tastes a little bit better. Whoops, lost one. Well, that's my white. There we go. About a half a cup of red wine. I'll let that reduce. I'm gonna cook some of these mushrooms to add to so we can make some of these mushrooms. We'll put them on top of the rabbit that we serve. This bottom right, I think I saw it. All right. And a little tomato. So, chicken broth. That. But just enough. Cover like the bottom half. And so that would be it. That would go in the oven. And hour or so would be ready. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to saute some of these onions. Some of these mushrooms. So we can put them on the top so you can taste them. And we'll start serving the rabbit and polenta in a couple minutes. So these are the yellow ones. The color of these things. These mushrooms. They're beautiful. And we had my grandmother made rabbit with polenta. My grandfather was from northern Italy, and his mother used to make it, and so she taught my grandmother, whose last name was McCarthy, how to make it. And yep. So we had rabbit a few times, and then she switched to chicken, but it was pretty much similar recipe, but not as many fresh herbs because they didn't really cook with fresh herbs back then. It was all dry. We're going to go into the chocolate dessert next. So I'm going to make the Vinsanto Zabaione that goes with the flourless cake. And I can watch the recipe because I don't think I put the recipe on there. I put the cake on. So instead of the traditional Italians with Marsala wine, I thought that was a little too overpowering for our cake. So it's a flourless chocolate torte, and it's got some crushed almonds in it. And so I've got 5 egg yolks. I'm going to put in about 3 ounces of Italian Vinsanto wine, which is a dessert wine from Tuscany, and about a half a cup of sugar. And then we cook it over boiling water, like making it's like making a hollandaise sauce, similar. So this takes about 10 minutes of just whisking. So anybody has any questions or anything, we're going to be doing this for a while. So take my mind off it. Probably now 5 minutes. So not too long. Yeah. So what'd you think about the rabbit? Anyone who hasn't had rabbit before that ate it that liked it, or what do you think? Yeah? Good. Glad you enjoyed it. It is good, but if you'd say it works with chicken, I made it with pork, something like it with pork tenderloin a couple weeks ago, and it came out good. You don't have to cook it for as long, but similar recipe for the sauce and the ingredients. So it's just whatever you have. That's like when I'm at home, I don't usually plan on the meal, so it's just whatever we have in the refrigerator, and I've been doing that forever. So now my kids are all older and out of the house and grown up, and whenever they're home or we're at their place, it's like, what's Dad's going to make refrigerator surprise? And I just go in there and make whatever they've got, and it usually comes out good. Their favorite thing once I made stir-fried spaghetti, and I don't even remember how I made it, but they just keep asking me about it. It was like 25 years ago. And I make breakfast spaghetti, which they love that. I take when I start cooking spaghetti, and then originally it was just eggs and cheese, and then I started doing I'll saute onions, zucchini, mushrooms, tomatoes, whatever's in the refrigerator, and then put it off to the side. Then I get a pan like this, a little bigger, flatter, and put oil in it and heat it up, and then just pour in whole eggs, like cracked eggs, obviously, and cook them on the underside, and just shut it off. And then when the pasta's done, strain it real fast and mix it in. So it's almost like carbonara. So it gets creamy, and then Parmesan cheese, and then throw the vegetables back in. And you could put in sausage, ham, and they'll take a little ham, but usually like the vegetables with it. But every time they're home, we make breakfast spaghetti, at least one of the mornings. Yeah, it's good. That's good. Good start. When we're on vacation, they have to have it at least one day. And their friends that used to come over when they were kids, if we're out there, they're all coming for breakfast spaghetti. What else? That's just cooking pretty fast. I don't know if you can see the color, but it'll start turning from bright yellow to almost white, and then it starts separating from the bottom as it is. So it's pretty close. It's pretty fast today. We make a Grand Marnier Zabaione at the restaurant that we do similar to this with Grand Marnier, but we chill it and then fold in whipped cream, and we put it over berries for one of our desserts. So we still make all our desserts at the restaurant. So this is about done here, and we're going to spoon it on the plates and get the cake out. Yeah, he was asking about the stracciatella cheese that we had. So it was the ends of the mozzarella. When they make fresh mozzarella, they use the curd and they put it in hot water and you got to stretch it. And so the pieces that they're pulling off pieces, and they end up with small pieces inside in a bowl with the hot water. And somebody was probably figuring out how not to throw something away, and threw it in a bowl, and then they poured some cream on it. It's heavy cream, and then some salt and a little tiny bit of vinegar, depending on their recipe. Each one has a different recipe. And then it sets, and it stays thick. That's about as thick as it gets, like we had today. No, it's 4 or 5 days, and the shards just turn into cream, and it's like soup. And it looks like it's cheese soup. Too much noise. All right. You get 12. Get 12. Oh, didn't get warm, did it? No. This is our flourless chocolate cake. It's chocolate, sugar, egg yolks, eggs, and butter. And that's about it. So it is flourless, gluten-free. It's one of our first desserts on our menu, and we still have it. We have about 30 desserts that we rotate. I try to get our Desi to make 8 or 10, but it doesn't work. He's always making more, and then whatever we don't make, somebody comes in and wants. So we end up with 12 or 14 at any time. Carrot cake's the biggest seller still, but this is right up there with it, and creme brulee and key lime pie and almond joy. Got too much. Banoffee pie, that's really good. Toffee, bananas, whipped cream. On top, you can sprinkle the berries on it.